welcome back to Fire Princess Reviews. I'm Fire Princess Lily here to tell you about comics, cartoons, and other awesome nerd stuff. So, it's been a bit. Why has it been a bit? Because it just didn't feel like it, right? I have these moments, these periods, but I try to put out a video when I can, and today I can. We're back on that one video a week, usually schedule, and hopefully we pick back up. We'll see where that goes. But let's get into today's subject. Today's subject is West Coast Avengers, a comic written by Kelly Thompson, and it was really good. I say was because it got canceled. Yep. 10 issues. It got 10 issues? 10 and 11. Yeah. And it sort of ended in the middle of a story. Like, the story resolved, but there were a lot of questions that were like, okay, we're gearing up for like this whole thing, but we'll get into that. We'll kind of get into that a little bit. Yeah. So, let's talk about that. Before we do, let's just talk about this a little bit. Now, you might be wondering, how can I get into older, cool anime that people talk about that isn't available really for viewing anymore, or, you know, whatever. You can read the manga. I read Sailor Moon. I know I watch Sailor Moon, but I still read it. Like, the new Eternal editions are out. They're super cool and neat. But a lot of anime does have manga, and it's good. I have a friend on Twitter. Her name's Josie, and one of her favorite catchphrases for Dragon Ball is to read the damn manga. And so that's just what I'm endorsing right here. Is like, if you love your anime and want to get a better deep dive into those characters and their feelings, read the damn manga. A good example of this is when All Might fought All for One. People are like, what the fuck is going on in this scene? Because the action's pretty decent, but in that scene, there's a bunch of dialogue in All Might's head that kind of explains what he's going through and why he doesn't kill All for One. But you don't really get that in the live version because they didn't do any like thought voice work. I don't know why. Probably because they wanted to kind of get that whole thing nice and crisp and kind of clean. So I get it. But yeah, read the manga. Alright, let's talk about this. Let's talk about West Coast Avengers. This is probably one of my favorite books of the last year. Started in 2008. Marvel book, obviously, Avengers. And it sort of starts right at the end of Kelly Thompson's run in Hawkeye. Kate Bishop Hawkeye. And still living on the West Coast, still trying to do that detective thing. And, well, she gets into a bit of trouble with land sharks. Land sharks are exactly what they sound like. They're sharks on land. Super dangerous. So she immediately calls for backup. She calls Clint. And basically, through a series of events, they decide to reform the West Coast Avengers. Never discussed it with anybody who might oppose that, you know, like the other Avengers, but they surely do start this team. The team is comprised of both Hawkeyes, Kate and Clint. It's got one Miss America Chavez, who you know I love. It's got Gwenpool. It's got Quentin Query and Kate's boyfriend Fuse, who's interesting but standing in the way of Americate. So I'm just like, he's neat, but yeah, I like him a little more now that I've read through like the thing. Like, he's definitely grown on me as a character, but before, at the start, very resistant to him. Glad I kind of got over it. Boop. Okay, so it's a team. It's an interesting setup and an interesting team, using characters that aren't really big on teams, more or less. I mean, sure, Quentin was a part of several X teams, but he never ever got along with anybody, never stuck around for a long time. America Chavez a part of the Eternals and the... not the Defenders. I think it's just the Eternals. Or maybe I'm remembering that wrong. But also doesn't play well with others, more or less. And so for both of them, I mean, she was also on the Young Avengers, but just for a short while to solve out the whole mom situation, which was a completely big thing. We might have talked about it once or twice on this channel. I could probably do an entire thing on that whole story arc with the Young Avengers. It was a good comic, and I really loved it a whole lot. So it's pretty good. It's a team of misfits, because what else could it possibly be? Sure, I love America Chavez. She just kind of works best when she's on her own, though. That's when she does her best work. When she's on a team, she gets by. She knows that she's powerful, strong, can kick tanks to the moon. Knows that. In fact, it comes up quite a bit when she has these interactions with Clint, where he's like, "Look, I'm not trying to get on your bad side." And she's like, "What? I'm personable. I'm likable." He's like, the phrase "could kick me to the moon" comes up a lot in conversation when talking about you. So it's like, it's an interesting team. And everybody's kind of got to learn to get along. It has the added benefit of being bankrolled by reality TV producers, which, if you know anything about Marvel in comic book form, the last time that a team decided to do that did not go well for anybody. There's a lot of sore feelings about that still, for obvious reasons. So, after solving a brief stint of problems from MODOK, who is calling himself Brodok, he's making himself like a super nice surfer boy body, and he's trying to, like, he wants to smooch people. I can't remember what his acronym is as Brodok, but instead of being only designed for killing, only designed for killing, at the end it's only designed for kissing, or something like that. Dumb. But it's funny. So this book has serious moments in it, but it's all got this underlay of comedy going through it that makes it real fun to read. These are fun characters. Also, Gwen and Quentin get into a relationship, which I also kind of don't care for, but it's still fun to read. Kelly Thompson's writing makes it a lot of fun to just enjoy these characters in these dynamics. Likewise, Gwen has her own set of issues where she's like, sure, in my own book, I had all these amazing powers where I could, like, just jump to the next panel, reach into a different panel, get the thing that we needed, you know, do whatever, do, like, all these cool reality bending things. But because this is a new book, or I suspect it's a new book, or a reboot for me of sorts, my powers are a little more fuzzy, and I'm not sure what they do. Which was something that would have been nice to explore within this book, but as I mentioned, 10 issues. And I know that comics is a money-making business. That's what they're here for. And if something's not selling well, and admittedly, maybe because they decided to use a team of misfits and characters that aren't necessarily super popular, it didn't sell as great as it possibly could have. I think they were banking on, see these side characters that you do like in other things being this one thing. Like, it was supposed to, I imagine, other than just the writer Kelly really enjoying these characters, I think they were banking on the absurdity of this team dynamic in order to pull people in to be interested to read. And unfortunately, it just didn't work, which is too bad. And if you can't, I guess, grab your audience within the first 3 or 4 comics, you're kind of done for, right? Because if it takes a while for your con to get up, because admittedly, while I am super invested in these characters and like these characters, I can understand why some people might not have read this. It took a while to sort of find its footing, and if you don't find that footing super fast, you're not pulling people in, they're not going to stick around, until you find it. And I feel like the story was just getting someplace, kind of, because after the whole MODOK situation, he makes all these ladies into giant monsters, which is really neat. It's neat because I like kaiju, 1. 2, there's a character in it, I believe her name's Shelly. She gets turned into a dragon, and when they're going to turn her back, she's like, no, I'm not mind-controlled anymore. I just want to be a cool fucking dragon. That's all I want in life, is to be a cool, giant dragon lady. And they're like, okay. Like, and she does come back, so it's cool. I enjoy it. But where it was hitting its stride is, after the MODOK stuff, it was kind of a introduction, like an announcement to the rest of the West Coast area, or just to the world in general, that yes, the West Coast Avengers are back, and that upsets a bunch of supervillains that are just kind of hanging around on the West Coast, because the East Coast has the East Coast is this way. The East Coast has tons and tons of superheroes all watching the East Coast. West Coast, not so much. Who do you have? Not really anybody. Kate Bishop's there, and sometimes her friends show up and spoil things, but more or less, it's pretty much out of the public eye. That's why the Pride operated there so long without any problems, is because everybody pays attention to the East Coast. Yeah, well, maybe I had it right. Anyway, not important. That's what it is. Right, so all these supervillains, getting back on track, are like, we're going to form our own evil league, and we're going to kill the West Coast Avengers, because of course we are. That's what our job is. And those plans are thwarted, and we get a big, kind of, oh, next time, you kids, except for Clint, who's not a kid, he's kind of an older dude hanging out with a bunch of kids, which is weird, but whatever. We're going to get you. And kind of Scooby-Doo through a fire portal, because, of course. And then the comic ends. It ends in a funny way, like, what is this letter, and why do they say we can get us canceled? And that's the last page, is kind of a letter about, oh, you're getting canceled. Kelly's goodbye letter is also true, in that she's like, I thought these characters would be more popular. They're not as popular as I feel that they should be, and I agree with that. I think that, like, Gwenpool had such an amazing, like, reception to get 2 years, like a 2-year run on comics, which doesn't happen nearly as often anymore. Some characters manage it, some characters don't. That was kind of a combination of her losing sales a little bit. It was slowly decreasing, and the writer for that character moving to doing something different for reasons that we were not going to get into on this channel. So that's why Gwenpool's solo comic kind of ended. And so taking those numbers and maybe adding this character, maybe you're banking on this one character being super popular. But I like all these characters, and I feel like if other people gave them, like, a fair shake, they would be more popular than they are. There's a lot of reasons, I feel, outside of the characters themselves, why they're not nearly as popular as they should be. Because reasons. I don't want to get into it, not on this channel. Maybe some other time on this channel, but today, no. So, should you read West Coast Avengers? Yes. I mean, the only reason I wouldn't suggest it is because it does have kind of a weird ending. But that's because it was sort of ended in the middle of a story. And maybe it's my feeling that if a comic is in the middle of, like, this arc, right? We're getting to, like, this arc, and maybe this arc is going to take a little while. You keep publishing it until that particular arc is done, so you get kind of a satisfying conclusion, because otherwise, like, when these characters come back up for other things, people are going to look back at West Coast Avengers and be like, well, this was weird, and people didn't much care for this, and so, and how do you, I mean, obviously, like, as I mentioned, the problem is, like, the money situation. Like, if this isn't making money, we can't keep printing it, so I don't know what the right choice is here. I don't know if they should keep, like, maybe making it, but not as many copies, so they're not taking total losses. Like, okay, so we sold 2,000 units. I don't know how many units it was actually selling. I don't look these things up. But I know it was underperforming, is basically the thing. So we sold 2,000 units of this last month. And the month before that, we sold 2,500. So we had a 500 drop-off. We'll wait for whatever orders come in. Like, however many, like, pre-orders we get, because you can pre-order comic books. You know this if you've watched this channel. We've talked about that. So maybe we'll wait for whatever the pre-order numbers are. Make that, plus a little extra for people who might want to get in on this, and, like, take a, like, when they hear about it from these people who are actually buying it. And I think maybe that's a bit, I don't know how possible that is, to be honest. I don't know if that means they need to push comic book production back another month to, like, go over the numbers and then only make that so many. I don't know. But comics not getting a satisfying conclusion sucks. Like, for whatever reason it happens, not good. And that's my time. I hope to see these characters and other things doing other things with each other. Like, this is a good team dynamic. And they introduced Jeff the Land Shark. He's like a little shark puppy. He's super cute and eats chicken. And I love him. I love him a lot. Almost as much as I love Jonathan, the actual Wolverine. Not quite as much, but hey, you know, it is what it is. And so, until next time, what are we going to talk about next time? I don't know. At this point, I never know. I never know what I'm going to bring up. Maybe? Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about Tuca and Birdie. It's a show on Netflix. It's an animated show for adults. Sort of in the same vein of BoJack Horseman a little bit. And so we're going to talk about that next time that we talk. But until next time, enjoy comics, enjoy cartoons, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!